Welcome to episode 5 of Screaming on the Inside. My name's Lee. I'm the admissions supervisor for UK Addiction Treatment Centres. So we'd like to give a warm welcome to a UKAT Alumni member, Mark Rathbone. Now, Mark attended our Banbury Lodge Centre back in 2019 and he's done really well and has been in recovery ever since. He joins us today to discuss his experience and share his story. So today's podcast is going to be about early recovery. But before we start talking about your early recovery, Mark, can I just get your view of what you thought recovery was going to be like when you went into treatment?
Yes. When I first came out, I hadn't really got much of a clue what it was all about. I was still under this sort of delusion that I could have some treatment, and after a certain a period of time, I might well be able to go out and enjoy the occasional drink, and get what I thought was my old life back, but at a very much reduced scale. But obviously, my experience is that just, it wasn't the case. And the second time that I went into Banbury Lodge, which was sort of 5 or 6 months after the first time. The second time, I was really broken physically. I could for the first 3 days I could barely walk with the treatment, and I remember sitting on the bed in my room and thinking, right, this can't go on the way it's going. It's my outlook of life has got to change. And then I sort of made the approach that I wanted to give AA 100% of my time, because everything I'd tried up to before then, I tried to stop drinking when I was 50. My second time round, when I was at Banbury, I was 56. So I'd been going from relapse to relapse in between. And
you've been trying for a while then?
Sorry?
You've been trying for a while to get sober?
That's it. I'd been trying, and it was just relapse after relapse. The longest I think I did in those 6 years was 18 months. But I was sort of white knuckling it all the time. I wasn't happy in my sobriety sort of thing. It was always a struggle. And the second time round when I was in, I realised that this just couldn't go on. I needed to approach life differently, and that's when I remember I thought I want to give AA a proper go. Before I just paid it lip service, and it wasn't sinking in. But when I decided to give it a second go, it worked almost immediately for me. When I came out of Banbury Lodge, within a week I'd found out my first AA meetings in Tenby, where I live, and there was another one about half an hour drive further away, and I started to do at least 2 meetings a week. Time and time again, at least 2 meetings a week. And things started to settle down. I started going through the big book, and it altered the way I started to look at life. And it made things easier. Living the code of the steps, it helped my mentality no end. And after a while, I found I was getting peace of mind that I'd never had before. All through the years that I tried to stop drinking, I was always having a mental battle with myself, and to stay sober was always a struggle. But once I started AA and I got into the two lovely groups that I met, and I had such a warm welcome, and made to be feel part of a team more or less straight away. And the guidance that they gave me, I found it was immensely helpful. And being able to share my experiences and my problems, it like opened a new door for me. And I was then able
really
to.
Does, doesn't it?
That's it. It was like a new lease of life. It was unbelievable, and all this, I could actually find peace for the first time in my life, which was really new to me, because I'd struggled with it, my mental health for years, and they guided me into things like meditation, and gave me just general things. I picked up off a lot of people. Everybody has from my experience now, has got something to give. When they share their experiences of how they've dealt with certain situations, you can pick up bits and think, oh, that's interesting what he's got to say. I'll try that myself. And somebody else, you might think, oh, no, that's not for me. And you pick the things that you think will suit you. And that's what I did. And after that, I began to get settled. I had peace of mind, and all of a sudden, the turmoil of wanting a drink disappeared, because I'd got peace of mind. I had to do certain things, obviously, changing my lifestyle, cleaning house to a certain extent, but I did find peace, and since then I really haven't looked back.
But you done so because obviously I work in the admissions team for UKAT Addiction Treatment Centres, and my job role is to facilitate the admissions for people to come into treatment. But I always make it very clear that when we take people into treatment, people do a lot of good work in treatment. They do a lot of soul searching, a lot of looking at themselves, addressing things that maybe they haven't done for a very long time. But the treatment initially is a good foundation. For me, it's the best foundation. And like yourself, I've done 2 rehabs. I've been into rehab twice. And it gave me the foundation I need. But what you've done when you've left treatment is you've done exactly the right thing, and there are many, many avenues. And I say that because lots of people that are going to listen to this will subscribe to different recovery models. But I myself am in 12-step recovery, and I truly believe in what it does. And it's given you the tools. You mentioned the peace, and I think that's the problem that I certainly didn't understand when I came into treatment, and most people don't understand that I feel worse without a drink in me than I do with a drink in me without the right help. And I'm always unsettled. I struggle not to drink every day. I can't enjoy my life. I can't enjoy my family. I can't, be a part of anything because I'm struggling not to drink and feeling really uncomfortable inside. And it will always inevitably lead me back to a drink, which it does with most people, or a drug in my case as well. But so you've done exactly the right thing. I mean, the early recovery part of your journey, the first 6 months or so, it can feel really intimidating, and I know it can. Everything can seem overwhelming. Emotions and feelings will be running high that you've not experienced before, and it is important that we sort of tell people what to expect during that time. So are you okay to tell me of a few of sort of the ups and downs that happened to you in your early recovery, the roller coaster of emotions that you went through?
Yeah, you get a total feeling you're unsettled when you first come out of recovery. Your body's taken such a bashing with the medication, and all of a sudden you're trying to break the hard habits that you had for years, and it's not an easy thing to just you can't just turn on a tap and all of those different feelings are going to go away, because they don't. It takes time, and that's why I think it is important to go to as many meetings as you can when you first come out, to change your pattern of thought. You've got to find peace, because without your mind, if your mind's turning round for dozens of times, and you're blowing everything up out of proportion, because your anxiety, especially my anxiety when I first came out of Banbury Lodge, my anxiety was still very, very, very high, and it was high for quite a few months afterwards before it started to calm down. So the things that you do, they're not an instant turn a tap on and everything's cured. You have to work at these things. As I said, you can't change the habits of what your mind's been doing for so many years. You won't change it instantly like that. You have to work at it. I found things like meditation was an absolute eye opener for me, because that gave me the peace, the to be able to clear my mind and think, and going through the steps, sort of, and talking through my problems. I'd never been able to do that before. I used to drink on my problems. I never used to talk about, I used to just shut it away and punish myself. I used to punish myself really for my problems by drinking. And it was a punishment, because drinking at the end was horrendous. I didn't enjoy a single drop that I was drinking just before I went into recovery. Everything was pure murder. I used to start drinking at 5 o'clock in the morning because I'd got such massive withdrawals, and I was going through half a bottle of brandy by about 11 o'clock. And then
it's amazing
that would, by 11 o'clock, I'd just about feel human. So them sort of feelings that don't instantly go away when you come out. So sometimes you'll have good days, sometimes you can feel really down, and you've got to pick up the tools to enable you to cope. When you're feeling down, first one, get yourself to a meeting. I prefer face-to-face meetings. I'm not one for some of the Zoom meetings. To be honest, I'm not one of the ones for Zoom meetings, because half the time I don't know how they work. But I found I got more benefit from sitting face-to-face with people and sharing my experiences, not holding back. Because I did find that whatever I'd done in the past was nothing compared to what a lot of other people had done. Most people didn't even bat an eyelid when you're talking through your problems. Most people have done, hell of a lot worse, and it was eye-opening, and it enabled me. My anxiety gradually it grew down and down and down, and as it was going down, I found life much easier. I could do the things I wanted to do. I was learning that I could actually have a very good life without drink, and gradually the need for drink just desisted, and I found myself not even thinking about a drink after probably took about 5 or 6 months before all the emotions and the feelings and everything started to settle down, and the anxiety reduced itself to a level which was negligible. I can still get anxiety, but the difference is now I know what to do about it. I'll go and meditate, or I'll go to a meeting, or I'll phone somebody from one of the meetings and talk things through. So some of the things you don't exactly go away completely, but what you do learn is to make them manageable and not let them spoil your life.
Yeah, but anxiety, I think, is every human being suffers with anxiety. But like you said, you drank on it for a long time.
There's anxiety. I used to think everybody was talking about me and everything. My anxiety was massive.
I was a great mind reader, and no one was ever thinking good thoughts about me. It was always bad.
I know exactly. I mean, I'd sneak out I hid bottles in the garage, and I used to in the morning. I was sort of sneaking out of my own house into the garage to get a drink, and I was convinced all the neighbours were staring out the windows at me. My anxiety was that high. because I didn't want to bring the drink into the house where my wife was, so I'd leave it in the garage. And, I was visiting the garage every 20 minutes. So if the neighbours must have thought, if they were watching, what's he got in that garage that he's in there every 20 minutes? But that was how my anxiety was. It was horrendous, and then talking to people towards the end, I found very hard because I used to get very emotional. And I'd even break down into tears at times. Because I just could not control my emotions. If somebody phoned me up and asked me how I was and things like that, that could reduce me to tears. My anxiety was that high. And it does take a long time before that goes down, but it does. It just takes that little bit of work.
It does with the right work. And I think, I like what you say, because you say it takes work. And the thing is with people who are going to be listening to this, the majority of the people, and myself before as well, when I'm in active addiction, whether I'm taking drugs or whether I'm drinking, I take that drug into my body or that drink into my body, and I get an instant solution to the anxiety. It just does what it's supposed to do. And it did that for many, many years. The thing is with recovery, and you've touched upon it quite a bit there, is it isn't an instant fix, and it takes some work. Now, my first 6 months, year maybe of being abstinent from drugs and in recovery, I was up and down, and all the time. So 1 minute I'd be really happy and elated with life. The next minute I'd be quite down. To speak to people about it, and they'd say, Lee, as long as you don't pick up during these times and you're doing what you need to do, and I do what you do. I do lots of meetings. I sponsor lots of men. I reach out to people. I do lots of things. I also pray and also meditate as well. But as long as I'm doing them things and trying to get myself out of it, as long as I don't pick up, it's a good day. I learned that in early recovery. Every day you stay clean and sober, that's a good day. Yeah. And it's got easier because I think the longer you're in recovery and working on yourself, the more your emotions will level out, the more you'll be able to deal with them. I think in my case, anyway, I've grown up a lot in terms of being very childlike when I come into recovery, because I'd never really dealt with life, or hadn't for many, many years, to actually getting some coping skills and strategies that everybody else has, that they've developed over the years, whereas I wasn't, because I was out doing what I shouldn't have been doing.
Totally. It's you're discovering a new set of feelings, as it were. Your old feelings of which I used to mask, obviously, massively with drink. All of a sudden, those feelings are different, and without the drink to reach for it, then you just have to have different methods of approach It's just, I don't know. It is not being born again. It's you start from a very childlike way in coping with your feelings. It's all new, and they can, your feelings can be a bit raw when you first come out, because you have to face certain things, and sometimes they're not pleasant in facing them. You have to sort of, as it says in the book, you do an inventory of yourself, and you discover things sometimes that you might not be too happy with knowing, but it's an important part of your recovery to face these feelings and to be able to deal with them in a constructive, rather than what you did before, to deal with them in an abusive manner by just picking up a drink and drinking them away. Yeah.
But you have to look at, though, the purpose of going through the 12-step program. For me, certainly 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 was to, if I don't know what I run on, and if I don't know who I am, and the underlying, defects of character they call them, but who I am naturally, if I don't know what that is, how am I supposed to be working on it? How am I going to know if these things are cropping up? And that's the way I looked at them steps. I mean, obviously, drinking was taking up or consuming probably 95% of your day, if not drinking, but thinking about it before you come in. So have you been able to, pick up old hobbies, or create new hobbies in your life, or new things, new loves that you like doing?
Oh yeah, I'm now a big walker. I love to. I live in Pembrokeshire, and Pembrokeshire has got miles and miles of beautiful coastline. And now I'm just happy. I can get my rucksack, get a can of pop, and I can go out with I can go out for walking for the day, and it improves my mental health immensely. But there is two ways of walking as well. That's one way I've learned. People can walk and just for exercise and not be aware of what's around them. And the tricky with walking to help you mentally is to stop, take time, and look at what's around you. Actually, observe, and rather than using it as I've got to cover 3 miles today or 5 miles, and off you go charging off. Walking it needs to be done with a bit of time and a bit of enjoyment, and that's helped me out immensely. And I also decided that I wanted to give a few things back, and I decided that I did some voluntary work for a company called Country Cabs in Tenby, and it's a taxi driver's role for pensioners and people who are less mobile.
Oh wow!
Basically, if they've got a bus pass, they can get a taxi from wherever they want to go for a vastly reduced rate. I think it just about covers the petrol. And I enjoyed doing that because I met some amazing people, and it helped me put my problems into perspective, because I get to talk to obviously the passenger, and there was one lady, and I'll always remember, she was blind, and I used to take her from Tenbury to Haverfordwest to do a little bit of shopping and take her back again. And she used to ask me, "Where are we, Mark?" And I'd describe where we were in the island. And the first time that I took her, she managed to guide me, even though she'd been blind 10 years. She guided me from this one island. She said, right, right down, and she managed to guide me to her house, which is in the middle of the countryside in Pembrokeshire. She got out the car, took a shopping, managed to get, obviously through her own gate, through her, up to a door, in through a door, and what amazed me is the fact that she was blind, but she knew, even in the car, exactly where she was. And I sat amazed with that. I was thinking, some of the problems I've had, and yet that woman's been able to deal with her blindness, that she can tell a taxi driver where to go to take her home. And I met lots of people like that that used to put my trivial problems into real perspective. And I used to get I want to go back to that when I've recovered from what I've been through of late. That is one I do desperately want to go back to, because I get such a feeling of fulfillment in doing it. So that it was an important one. And also I'm a bit of an old scooter boy. I've got 2 Lambrettas, and for much of my drinking period, I just couldn't get out and ride my scooters. And they've always been my pride and joy. And I got, even when I wasn't drinking, at a particular time, my anxiety prevented me from riding. So it was always my big aim to get back on my scooters and get out riding again. I've nearly mastered that. Because now, as soon as I was out, because of my cancer thing, straight away where they operated, I couldn't sit down for quite a long time. So sitting on an old Lambretta had to sort of take second stage again. But I'm now at a stage where I can actually get out and get on my scooters. So So yeah, that's another one. Another one I did click with. I've made new friends. My AA group. Not only we go for meetings, we go and have a cup of tea and a cake and things afterwards. So I've got to meet new friends, not just what you call through a shared experience of meetings, but there's one or two. I'll pop round to the house and have a cup of tea and a chat. And they'll come to me, and we can have a walk into town and we'll go and have a cup of tea. That's nice. So there are things you can do. I love my gardening. I'm well into my gardening now. I find that far more relaxing than I ever used to do when I was drinking. Cutting the grass was a job that had got to be done at 500 mile an hour. Now I like to go out, spend a bit of time in the garden, and gardening isn't a chore anymore. It's a pleasure.
No.
It's something I can take my time in doing and get a sense of accomplishment that I've actually done a nice job. I do. One of our neighbours he recently had a stroke, and they were going to move because they couldn't cope with the garden. And I've said, no, you're not moving. You're not moving house. I'll sort your lawns out for you, and I'll do your privets. And yeah, I've done that. That gives me an immense sense of fulfilment that I'm giving something back. That feeling of doing something for somebody for nothing gives you an immense feeling of peace. I mean, they say, "Oh, Mark, we'll pay you." No, I don't want paying. Just the fact that you let that I'm know that I'm doing something for somebody gives me a lot of fulfilment, and it helps my mind and gives me that sense of peace and well-being, and that improved my mental health. Now, plus the fact I get to chat more with them, which helped me when reduce my anxiety. Now I'll chat to anybody without the slightest instance. Where when I was drinking, my anxiety that was just I just couldn't do it. I was so timid and just withdrawn within my own shell that I never used to speak to anybody. But now, if anything, now I'm probably a bit too much of a chatterbox. But those are the sort of things that I did that helped me.
Yeah, it's you mentioned so much there, giving back to other people. I was a very, very selfish man in my addiction. Didn't see past the end of my nose really and see how it affected everyone else. And it's a part of the 12-step recovery program, isn't it? Going and helping other people, doing service when asked through meetings, either, at regular meetings or sharing at meetings or through sponsorship or even you can go up in the service triangle, can't you, or down as we look at it. There are lots of ways to get out of self, helping other people, really. Doing things for other people will make you feel good about yourself. And I think for me, it's a very important part of what I've been doing as well in my life, because I have to be like that, or I can slip back into the old way of thinking, the way I felt my whole life, which was really, that people were there in a lot of cases to sort of please me, because addiction made me very, very selfish. You did mention that you've had cancer, and I know you're in remission from that. And are you able to tell me a little bit about that and how you stayed sober dealing with that? Because I've not had to deal with anything personally that big in my recovery. And when you told me yesterday when we spoke on the phone, it just blew me away. How somebody can get through that and not pick up a drink. It was really quite an eye-opener for me. So are you able to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, fine. Yeah. It's obviously, I came out of Banbury Lodge in the August. And that was obviously the beginning of my recovery. I was doing, I was doing very, very well. And then came lockdown, which was sort of March, April, wasn't it? And after a few weeks of lockdown, I began to feel uncomfortable in sitting down, and I thought, this isn't right. And at first I thought I'd got piles or something like that from sitting on my backside for too long because of not being able to get out, because we were all obviously virtually prisoners in our houses by then. But I thought, no, this isn't right. And I managed to get an appointment with which the first step was the nurse, and I had a blood test for my prostate, and that was clear. But I was still in a lot of, getting a lot of discomfort. So I said, well, what's the next step? She said, well, I'll try and get you in to see the doctor. Went in and seen the doctor, and he gave me an internal examination, and he told me immediately to get up to the main hospital in Haverfordwest, and I was got to see a specialist straight away in there, and I could feel a growth down in my backside. So I had a series of tests, colostomies, cameras and things like that, and within a very short time, they'd told me that I'd got bowel cancer, which was obviously in the heat of lockdown. So at that particular time, none of the operations were happening. So as an intermediate thing, I had a course of radiotherapy, which was fine. But all that did was irritate the cancer, and probably, it did. It caused more pain. But then as things started to cool down a little bit with the COVID threats, I managed to get my operation on the 18th of November, where they took out 3 layers of my bowel. So they sewed up my backside and fitted me with a colostomy bag, which it's quite a culture shock. I'm 57, so I'm quite young really to have gone through that sort of operation. And when I came out of that, I found out after 3 weeks that what they'd taken out, they'd done certain tests on, and there was still cancer in my lymph nodes inside my bowel. So they told me I'd got to have a course of chemotherapy, which I had 4 months of, which knocked me about something awful. The side effects were quite bad. You get real vicious pins and needles in your hands and your feet. You can't touch anything that is even remotely cool. Everything has to be warm. You can't eat anything cold. Even just a sandwich, unless it's got something hot inside it, it'd clamp my throat up and shut up all my airways. So the chemotherapy side was very hard, very, very punishing physically and mentally, because it's very hard to keep yourself motivated when you feel so ill. You feel sick all the time, so tired and lethargic, and just genuinely so unwell. And obviously I had my 4 months, and I was praying that originally I was down to have 6 months, and I heard that in certain cases after 4 months, depending on your results, they stop at 4 months, and I was praying they were going to keep it to 4 months. And I had another scan at 4 months, and it was clear, that was about a month ago.
Wow.
So I'm in the process now of recovery from the chemo, which I was told will take about 4 months to get my strength back. But to be fair, that is increasing every single day. I'm now doing my decent walks again. I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do before, and I've discovered this new magic thing called ice cream that I couldn't have for so long. And I'll be honest, one of the things that I discovered when you first go into recovery is a sweet tooth. And I've discovered my sweet stuff again with ice cream. It's just a relief to have something nice when you've gone through a sort of, well, it was just over a year of the treatment, all in all. So it was hard, but my AA group is the thing that kept me going through it all. They regularly, they'd text me during the week, how are you doing? How are you coping? They'd phone me during the week rather than just at the meetings. There was a few meetings I couldn't manage to go to because of when I was having the chemo, because purely I just didn't feel too well. But if there was any reason I didn't go, they were on the phone. Are you all right? Are you well? Checking up on me all the time. And even when I was in hospital, I was getting text messages that they were praying for me, and things like that. And it lifted my soul. And it gave me the will to not have one of those magic, well, I call epic moments, which once a time during treatment you do get these feelings of why am I doing this? I've got cancer. I'm going to go and have a drink. Those feelings did cross my mind once or twice, but the support that I got from my AA group and what I'd learned through AA is not to any longer react on impulse. Every impulse that you get in your head, like those stuff it moments and things like that, to stop, to take a step back and think, and don't react anymore on impulse. Think about what you're doing, and those things that I'd learned and the support from AA gave me the courage to do it. And to be honest, I owe my life to AA, because if I hadn't found AA after my recovery, I would never have got treated, because I'd have still been drinking. There is no way I would have got treated. Through the COVID particular period, they were only doing certain operations, and you had to sort of tick the boxes before they'd think about doing it. And I'm sure one of them was you do not drink. And I was openly honest with my surgeon. I'd told him what I'd gone through, and he could see what I'd been through in the past, and he was quite happy to carry on and operate, even though so many people were cancelling operations, because the few that they were doing, a lot of people didn't want to go into hospital because they were convinced they'd catch COVID while they were in hospital. The way I looked at it was, if I don't have the operation, I'm going to die anyway. So go ahead and do it. But I can honestly say AA saved my life, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to stop drinking. Without stopping drinking, they wouldn't have operated, and I would be, if I wouldn't already be dead, then I'd certainly be well on my way by now. So it made it easy for me. It all the treatment and the when I was feeling down and things like that, I knew I'd only got to pick up a phone and speak to somebody in the group, and I could find peace again then, and I'd be given the encouragement to carry on and give me that sense of well-being. And it's very important to feel as if you're part of a team with these sort of things. And I was determined all the way through my recovery I wasn't going to let the team down, and that helped me immensely. It gave me solid foundations to work on, and I'm immensely grateful to everybody in my group, because it's so refreshing, or it's so supporting to come out of anaesthetic and be shoved in a room and you're in so much pain. I was having to be turned over every 2 hours when I first come out of the anaesthetic, which was another. I also found out the hard way that I was morphine intolerant. I was pressing this little buzzer for my morphine fix to kill the pain, but it just wasn't doing anything. And it took 2 days before they managed to find an alternative medication that I could take to kill the pain. So the pain was horrendous, but I'd only got to pick up my phone and I'd have text messages off the people in my group saying that they were praying for me and how are you doing this morning? Are you okay? And things like, and that gave me a great deal of strength. And I'm immensely grateful for all the people in my group because it just helped. It just gave me a lot of strength, inner strength, which I'd never had before or didn't think I'd got before when I was drinking. But I found out that when push comes to shove, deep down, I'd got that willpower. I'd got that inner strength that I can now I can pull on, and it was very eye-opening. It was very humbling. The whole thing was humbling, even from the staff. People being so kind. That was another thing. I wasn't used to people being nice to me because I'd always shied away from things like that. And it was nice to have people saying, "Oh, you're doing really well," and things like it. It just opened up another can of worms again of emotions, but nice emotions this time. And to be honest, I people have said how amazed I was how I never got down during treatment. Even the doctor said, even when you suffering from the side effects of the chemo and things, I'd still always got this stupid grin on my face. And I'm convinced that was help from my AA group because I knew I weren't on my own.
Yeah, but then, you managed to get through something that's, life-changing, and you didn't pick up. I mean, the thing is that you was able to stay sober throughout that whole traumatic treatment, and not only stay sober, but to, turn it around and make the best of, what was going on. And it's amazing what people can get through with the right support and the right ongoing support and the right recovery programs. I've heard people say before, who've I've seen come back from a relapse. Well, I walked past the pub and I saw the glass glittering, and I couldn't resist. And I think you didn't drink because that was there. You drank probably because you was feeling a lot of anxiety, you was unsettled, and you didn't have the support or a strong recovery program. The idea of going out in recovery. So my experience of early recovery was I stayed out of anywhere that served alcohol for around 9 months or so. I went to the odd restaurant, but it was very uncomfortable for me. How do you feel about that? Are you able to, probably now you are, but when you were early, were you able to go out? Were you able to go out and eat? To
be honest, I'm one of these people that believe you've got to face your problems head on. And I've always, not necessarily because of drinking, I've always liked pubs. I'm fascinated, especially if you go to places like York and things like that, and you've got these oldie-worldy pubs. I've always had a fascination with pubs, and I just want to look inside and have a look around. And I was determined once, when I did come out of Banbury Lodge, I did stay away from pubs for probably 4 or 5 months until things started to settle down. But it was one of the things that I didn't want to spoil my life, and it was also I'm always pushing myself, and I wanted to challenge myself to say that I could go into a pub, I could have a meal, I could sit and chat with friends. And have a soft drink and be able to socialise and carry on with my life. And so I didn't shy away from it. What I did have, as I broached on in the past, I like my scootering, and scootering is very much sort of a club orientation. And I was open with and honest with my friends in the scootering club that I'm a member of. You know, what I've been through, and when we used to go riding out, we always end up riding out. It's always a pub orientated. They were always watching what I was drinking. They'd always, you know, and they were looking out for me. And I was quite honest with them. I'd said that at times, you know, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'll just disappear and go. I won't say goodbye to anybody. If I've got that,
so you have that plan
anything that's an impulse enters my head.
Yeah,
that's it. You've got to have that exit strategy, and they all totally understood. I mean, it's important to obviously, I think, to face your problems, and the in my case, because I pushed myself. I was in the army for 4.5 years, which was probably one of the reasons I struggled so much with recovery when I tried to stop drinking at 50, because the army teaches you willpower, and it teaches you that you can do everything yourself. You can do it. You're a man. You can do these things on your own. And recovery isn't like that. You can't do it on your own. And for years, I tried to do it on my own, and I couldn't do it. But it's also part of the army teaches you to push yourself, and pushing myself was one of the things I wanted to do with the pub, because I do enjoy going into a pub and just nosing. A lot of time I can go into a pub. I'll have a glass of Coke, and all I'm interested in is having a mooch around the actual pub itself and the history of the pub. I'm fascinated by old buildings, and that probably it made it easier for me, because I didn't used to go into dives where you've got people, you know, hammered, sitting in the corner, bladdered or popped out of their heads. The pubs that I used to tend to go into are more like nice country pubs and things like that. I don't bother with anything that's got no history to it. But it helped me to face up to these things. I'm not, you know, I can quite happily, I can walk past a pub and not bother, or I can think, oh, you know, I'll go in and have a glass of pop, and I'm quite happy having a glass of pop. In Tenby, it's a seaside town. It's made to get on my scooter, to go and drive down to the seafront, go and sit outside one of the pubs with the scooter sitting over the road and having a glass of pop, and people will talk about my scooters and things like that. Pardon me. Sitting in a group, and that enabled me to socialise with all the people that I used to socialise. Not in my drinking days, because the scootering chaps that I ride around with aren't heavy drinkers anyway, but they will have a drink, and they will go to certain dances, and they'll have quite a good drink then, but they're always watching if ever I go to a do, they're watching what I'm drinking. I don't think if I picked up a drink, I'd probably get a slap off one or two of them, because they just look out for me, and that helped me immensely. It is important to have the right people around you.
It is, and it's also, I like, you know, you say you go into nice places for the ambience, for food and things, for, you know, the actual place itself, and it is okay. I believe, I'm a firm believer in that, you know, once you're in, and you know, early recovery is different. Some people in early recovery, I was one of them. I couldn't be around it. I couldn't put myself in danger. But I'm a few years in now, and I'm able to go anywhere and do anything. You know, if I do go into a pub, I go there because there's an event going on, or because I'm going to meet people, and I can be around alcohol, not be tempted. And if I ever am tempted, it's just a passing thought. And like you say about the exit strategy, I was told that in early recovery, your sobriety comes first, your recovery comes first. Nothing comes in front of that. If you need to get up and leave, you need to get up and leave. You don't need to give excuses. It's about keeping yourself safe.
Exactly.
And that's, you know, my primary purpose. As long as I do stay sober, same as you, as long as you stay sober, then you're able to deal with the other things that life throws at you. And, you know, you're a prime example of that. I mean, how have you felt? And I know you've touched on this quite a lot anyway, but it is important to sort of maybe highlight it about. I think a lot of people, you said about your army days, should be able to sort things out with willpower alone and things. But how have you felt about being able to get vulnerable and asking for help, whether that be from AA? I know you're a part of alumni as well, but just being able to say, do you know what, I'm not having a great day, and actually having the humility to admit that and ask for help. Have you found that easy?
I didn't find it, well, I struggled for, as I said, for the best part of 6 years. From when I tried to stop drinking at 50. And it took me 6 years before, obviously, I found my second stint at Banbury. For those 5 or 6 years, I didn't ask for help. And it's the biggest mistake that I ever made in my life. Asking for help, you cannot do this recovery process on your own. Anybody that tries to do it on their own is asking for trouble. You just won't do it. I was the most stubborn-faced, pig-headed person. I could do anything because the army had rustled into me. It's all about willpower. You can do it. You can do it. I couldn't do it. And I just got fed up of trying to do it on my own. I just couldn't. I just got sick of failure all the time. And when I did ask for help, it was such a relief. It was a big weight off my shoulders. And all of a sudden, not just the help in the drinking, helping in life. Talking through my problems, and they're not all related to alcohol. There's your triggers. It's a whole world of things that you need help with. And once you open that door, it's the most important step you'll ever make. Honesty is your key part of recovery, because you won't find your serenity, your peace of mind that you will need for your recovery. And to get on and enjoy your future life, you won't get that without honesty. You've got to be able to live with yourself and live with the things that you've done in the past and be able to put them, you don't forget them, but you put them in a place where they don't hurt you anymore. They're always there, but you can deal with them. Your feelings of guilt have gone away. You've tried to make amends where appropriate, and you've hopefully you've had some success in that. But if you haven't, it's not the end of the world. You get on, then it gives you that feeling of serenity. And unless you're honest, you won't ever get that, because you'll always have nagging doubts of holding back certain bits of information. And honesty is the key thing to your recovery. You've got to be able to face what you've done in the past and be able to deal with them and put them in the correct place in your mind, so that they don't get up and stab you in the back 3 months down the line because you haven't accepted it. You've got to be able to put things away and live comfortably afterwards. But without that, without honesty, those things don't happen.
No, that's true. And it is, I think it shows strength of character when people ask for help. I've never had someone approach me for help, whether it be in a professional capacity at work or in meetings, and you think, oh, you're so weak or anything like that. I think it shows real character and real strength to be able to ask for help. And also, people who have been sober a little while, it's okay to say, do you know what, I'm not having a great day. My head is absolutely doing one. And it's good to, sort of reach out and talk about it, because you would never feel, I don't know about you, so you're probably the same as me. It's never an inconvenience to take a phone call. I always like helping people, and I'm sure people do when I reach out to them, and I do. I have a sponsor, I have good friends who I speak to, and tell them. And like you say, it's not always, it's not about, for me, that I'm going to drink or pick up a drug. It's not been like that for quite a long time, but it's just about life stuff, which I'm pretty sure if I didn't deal with would eventually come back to a drink or a drug, but it's not about that at the time. How have you been able to gain the trust of your family again since leaving treatment and embarking on your recovery journey? I know that can be hard for people to forgive and to start trusting again. Have you found it an easy process?
Well, to be honest, the family history was my dad was an absolute. He was an alcoholic, and I sort of followed in his steps. And the family, to a certain extent, got used to that. Because even when I was working and in the army, I was drinking heavily all the time, and that became the norm. And when they saw that it started to affect my mental health and my physical health and things like that, they were concerned for me. But they were supportive. Nobody ever really jumped on my back and sort of punished me. They were always there to try and help if they could. So I didn't have many sort of. The person I was harming when I was drinking was myself. I didn't. I harmed my relationship with the wife probably more than anything because she was the one that had to watch me doing this to myself, and she couldn't do anything about it. So, but she was always there to help me. She taught me through. She helped me, make the decision to go into rehab. She was rock solid. We were married when we were 20 and 21, and 16 and 17 when we started going out. So she's been my rock all the way through. She's seen my good times. She's seen my bad times. But she's always been there, no matter what. When I was drinking, she wouldn't jump on my back and cause arguments over it because she knew that's what would end up being. There would end up being a row. But she was the first one to try and talk to me, try and find out what was bothering you, trying to get to the root of what was causing me to drink. And we managed to deal with things together. But my family-wise, because it was half as if it was expected of me to become an alcoholic, because my dad was such a heavy drinker that it was as if it was inevitable that was going to happen, and it was odd. But when I've stopped drinking, their support and the amazement that they've seen what I've been able to do and the change in my personality. I'm a different person. I've got patience now. I can talk to people now. My family were very, very disjointed. Even though I've got two sisters and a brother, we could probably go 12 months without talking. The only time we used to see each other was at weddings and funerals. But now since I've stopped drinking, we're coming closer. I'm going back up to Birmingham, in fact, where all my family are in next week, and we're all going to have a family lunch to celebrate, obviously, my remission sort of thing. And
amazing. That
would never have happened. While I was drinking, it just wouldn't have happened. But the fact that I have stopped drinking, they are comfortable to come out and enjoy a day out and a meal, and that's nice. But we're such a very disjointed family. It was, as I said, it was hard. My experiences of drink started probably from when I was 8, when I used to be sent down to the pub to get my dad out the pub. We used to go and visit my nan every Saturday, and I was the one that used to have to be sent down the road to try and get him out the pub. And once I was in the pub, because he wasn't ready that he wanted to go home, it started with, have a glass of shandy and things, and that's how the sort of my life started with drink. So I don't think anybody was particularly surprised that I couldn't stop drinking when I reached 50. But there again, I never told my family what was going on in my head. The only person that really knew what was happening in my head was my wife. So I didn't let anybody in. So they were probably, to a certain extent, unaware of how much I was struggling, because I could go months without talking to her. I would talk to my mother, but that was mainly because when my dad did pass away, I wanted to make sure that she was all right. But there again, I did have periods when my anxiety was that high. I couldn't speak to her for weeks on end because I could burst into tears. And she had a knack of being able to tell when I was struggling. She could tell by my voice. When I'd be speaking to her to ask her how she's going on, she could get inside my head. She knew when something wasn't quite right, and she could always pick up on that, which was in some ways was good, but in other ways it was bad because it made me hide even more. Then I wouldn't contact her because I knew she could break me down. So I used to sort of hold back on that. And again, just bottle it up, which just made things even worse, leading to even heavier drinking, if that was even possible. But yeah, overall, I found my family to be very, very supportive. The only one I haven't been able to approach is my son. But that is probably because that is the part of the house clearing that to have, not to drink again, because he was one of the sources of my relapses, because he used to get into that much trouble, and I used to take all his trouble on board as if I was suffering it. And that was one of the clearance things that I had to have. I had to sort of put him on a back burner. And to be honest, I haven't spoken to him for over a year now. And I've learned to deal with it because it's an important part of my recovery. It was one of the triggers that I identified that would constantly lead to relapses. And he knew it. And he used to pray on it. And it was part of my house, part of the house clearancing I had to do. Sometimes, even as you said, a personal family relationship sometimes can be unhealthy. And if you have to do that as part of your sort of house clearing to make sure you stay on the straight and narrow, so be it. And that's what I had to do. And I don't worry about his problems anymore. He's a man now. I used to worry about everything that he used to do. I don't anymore. I leave that to my higher power now. He does all my worrying for me, and that helps no end.
Well, that is a nice way to look at it. It really is. And I think I think it's obviously been difficult with the relationship with your son, but in terms of being able to come into recovery and put things right with your wife and things, it's obviously testament to the work you've put in. But some people are going to struggle with being able to integrate back into the family unit and to be able to integrate back into life as well. And it can be difficult, and it takes time for some people. I remember I was about 5 months, not even 5 months sober, probably about 3 months sober, really, really new. And I was late home from a meeting, and my partner phoned me. She said, "Well, where are you?" I said, "Well, I've gone out for a coffee." And she said, "Oh, well, I was worried." And she said, "Okay, I'll see you when you get in." And I spoke to the guys I was in the car with, and I said, "That's great." And she don't trust me. I mean, look at that. Look, I'm thinking I'm doing so much hard work, and she's not trusting me. And one of them just turned around and said, "How long did you drink and use for, Lee?" I was like, "Well, 26 years." And she said, "And how long you been sober for?" "Well, 12 weeks." Well, come on, let's look at it. It's like, it takes time. It does take time. It's trust is a thing that takes a lot to earn again and can be lost in a millisecond. So,
definitely,
it is important to keep working on yourself. And I do like your general outlook around recovery. And that's what it is if I can get through the day, my sort of daily routine is if I can look at my day at night, which I do. If I haven't lied, if I haven't manipulated, if I haven't been unkind to anyone, it's been a good day. I like to look at it as if I'm quite happy telling my sponsor, my wife, and my family about my day, honestly, then it's been a good day.
Exactly.
If I'm quite happy to be honest, then it's been a good day for me. And do you mind me asking your sobriety date, Mark?
I came out in. I went in on the 18th of August. I was in for a week, which was because I should have gone in for longer, but I hated leaving the wife on her own, so I went in for the week. It'll be 2 years this coming August.
Amazing. Okay, so you're coming up to, excuse me, I know we keep it in a day, but 2 years. I round mine up as well. You're
one
nearly...
thing I learned, which helped me in no end, never mention time. Some people always want to achieve, it's been 2 weeks, it's been this. I do what you've touched on today. I only do today. Never. I don't look at. I've done 6 months and bragging. To me, time is a non-entity. You're just living for today and enjoy the day. I always find that, especially with early recovery, the time period used to put a bit of pressure on me. That it used to sort of make it drag. Whereas not thinking about it, it just time passed and it just went a bit easier.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, time doesn't buy recovery, most definitely not. And you can only ever stay sober right here and right now.
Exactly.
I've never stayed sober next week or next year today, but I can stay sober today. How do you feel? Because obviously I just wanted to sort of get an idea of how long you've been sober for, because I think one of the biggest things in, what does it say in the big book, that resentment is the number one offender. I'm a firm believer that complacency for a lot of people can be just as big an offender as that. How do you keep it fresh? I mean, are you still doing what you were doing when you first got sober?
I'm still doing 1 or 2 meetings a week. I enjoy my meetings. To me, they're my maintenance schedule. I made up my mind, not long after I came out of Banbury Lodge, that I would be in recovery for the rest of my life. And the sooner I deal with it, the sooner I can get on with it and enjoy things. And then things become second nature and enjoyable. They're no longer hard work. I don't look at my AA meetings as a chore. I look at them as a chance to touch base with my friends, to share what sort of loony week they've had. The little things that have sent them tap do lally for a day sort of thing. I don't find that as a chore. I find it refreshing. It's like going into a petrol station and filling up your motor with top grade petrol. That's the way an AA meeting is to me. I can come out refreshed. My silly little, trivial little thing I'd probably got flying around in my head before I went into a meeting doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. That helps me immensely. Things are fresh all the while. I don't struggle with things to say at a meeting. Because now I'm doing so much more. So I'm walking. I'm hoping to get back into my voluntary work in the next in the next few weeks. That again gives me another topic of conversation to talk about at our meetings. But I cram a lot in to life now. Because we're never at home, or hardly ever at home, because we get out walking. Last week it was our wedding anniversary last week, and on the cuff of the moment decided to go from Tenby to Bodden Garden, which is Conway right up towards Llandudno. It was 180 odd miles away just to go to the National Trust Garden Centre there.
That's
to
beautiful,
have a walk around.
Being able to do stuff like that.
Yeah. just get up and go. That's what life's about. It's either about sticking a rucksack on and going trotting around, or, get in the car and go out driving and spend the day walking. That's what I like to do. And the pair of us we probably spent about 3 hours there, and probably spent about 10 hours in the car. But it was a day, a lovely day. I'm never in. I've got my scooters, I've got my garden, I've got my walking. I live in Pembrokeshire. It's a lovely place. You can go out exploring. There's that many walks around here. It's beyond belief. Life's too short. I've learned life is too short, and life isn't to be spent sitting on your backside feeling sorry for yourself. Life is, it's a challenge, and you accept that challenge and get on and beat it. Get on, meet it head on, and get out and enjoy yourself. And you learn so quickly that you can have far better experiences without a drink than you can with one. For the start off, you can remember what you've done with it, which was always a problem when it was having a drink. But life is short. Get out and live it. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I couldn't have put that any better myself, Mark. This isn't a dress rehearsal. None of us are getting out of here alive. Enjoy it for what it is. No, exactly. I have to agree with you. This has to be better. Recovery has to be better than my life before. It has to be. Because if I wasn't enjoying life more now, even with the ups and downs that recovery can bring, and it does, life happens, this wasn't remarkably better, I'd probably go back to living the way I was before, because I was comfortable doing it.
The way my life used to be, my worst day in recovery is better than any day I had when I was drinking, by far. My life when I was drinking was pure turmoil and terror, and I couldn't face that again. And when you open this new chapter in your life, that you can find that you can get just a bigger buzz, going out, meeting people, going out walking, and enjoying your life, and you can see things that you've never seen before, because you don't see life properly when you're half cut. That's not what life's about. You can see far more of life when you're sober and living it, and you're not living it when you're drinking. It's a simply you're shielding yourself when you're drinking. You're only seeing the inside of a pub, and sleeping. You go from drink, sleep, drink, sleep, drink, sleep. That's what life was to me when I was drinking. I don't do that anymore now. I'm out and enjoying life, and it's so fulfilling. Even in my worst days when I was having my chemo and things like, even in those worst days, I would not have gone back for one day to the way I felt when I was drinking, and I felt really ill when I was having chemo, but I wouldn't want to go one day back to when I was drinking. I just couldn't do it again. It would destroy me.
And that's the message right there. And it really, really is. It's a powerful, powerful message. I think if anybody's listening to this and they're struggling, they need support, reach out. You have the local fellowships. You can find them online. You can contact UKAT directly. Reach out, seek help, because it's possible. Not only is it possible to get sober and clean, no matter where you've been, but it's also possible to stay that way no matter what you're going through, because Mark is proof of that. Well, Mark, thank you very much for joining me today. You've been listening to Screaming on the Inside with our special guest, Mark. Find our podcast on all audio platforms. Simply search Screaming on the Inside. If you would like to feature or have any topic ideas for this podcast, you can email sotipod@ukat.co.uk. Thank you, and thank you very much for joining me, Mark.
Thank you.